Hey guys, it's Chris, and I wanted to talk about The Witcher Season 2. Yes, it's finally going to be back into production very soon. We got a recent tweet, very Yaskier, or for you gamers out there, Dandelion-like, a little poem, so to speak, from The Witcher Netflix on Twitter, and it reads, I'm dusting off my lute and quill. I have some news, some mead to spill. After all the months we've been apart, it's time for production to restart. The Witcher and his bard, who's flawless, will reunite on set. 17th of August. So there you go. That's when they're going to actually come back and start filming again for The Witcher release Season 2 in 2021. They have not released specifics about the particular day or whatever, but we are guessing August 2021. That's when most people think it will actually happen. So a little bit of a spoiler warning here for something you will definitely see in at least one episode of The Witcher Season 2, and that is based off the short story, A Grain of Truth. That's because we had two pretty big pieces of casting news. The first being Kim Bodnia, who will be playing Vesemir. Now, of course, Vesemir is the oldest Witcher who trained Geralt and is very much a father figure to him. He is featured prominently throughout the video games, of course, The Witcher 3 specifically, as well as the books. But of course, the show is based off the books, short stories, and novels going forward. So this will be based off that storyline and not the video games. Although if they do choose to go into that direction after a few seasons of getting through the books and all that, they certainly are not short of any particular material. The other big role was Game of Thrones star Christopher Hivju, otherwise known, I believe that's his last name. Forgive me if I mispronounce it. I've never really known the proper pronunciation for Tormund Giantsbane. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Tormund Giantsbane is coming to The Witcher, and he is playing a character called Novellin. Now, Novellin is a character, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, who comes from a story called A Grain of Truth from the short story book The Last Wish. So of course they're going to go into the novel territory as well, but they're still obviously playing around with the short stories that we did not see in season 1. We've already seen the majority of these stories in the season 1 episodes, and this is when all the timelines were mixed up and all that stuff. And now in season 2, by the way, they will all be linear and straightforward. So they did confirm that as well, that it won't be so confusing as far as the timelines. Me personally, I love the different timelines, how they all came together, and you were like, oh shit, that makes more sense now when they all kind of came together in the last 2 episodes. But so real quickly, let's go through A Grain of Truth and give you an idea of what Tormund's role is going to be in this one particular short story. So this may last over the course of a season. I doubt it, though. Probably going to be maybe 1 episode unless he's a recurring character after that. Spoilers here for the books, obviously, but you will see this in at least 1 episode of The Witcher Season 2. So the Cliff Notes version of A Grain of Truth, again, a short story from the short story book, The Last Wish. There's also another short story called The Last Wish. A Grain of Truth essentially starts with Geralt looking for a short path through a valley when he notices some birds circling a particular area in a nearby forest. There he finds the corpse of a merchant and a young woman, and of course, being the investigator that he is, follows the path from which they had presumably come from and finds a run-down manor surrounded by a high wall and a gate. Geralt's horse Roach gets anxious and has to calm her down with a sign. And actually, I did a separate video on the Witcher signs, the most common, the ones we saw in Witcher Season 1, and hopefully we'll see some more of these in the Witcher Season 2. So I will link that in the description below, and that will pop up right up here somewhere, I think. So anyway, he comes across this manor, Roach gets spooked, and Geralt notices this big fountain shaped like a dolphin and this magnificent rose bush or whatever that's standing out there. Kind of stands out for this run-down manor that he's standing in front of. And then soon he is distracted by the sound of a rushing beast. Shortly thereafter, Geralt comes face to face with the mansion's current owner, Novellin. This will be Tormund Giantsbane. Now, at this point, Novellin is more beast than man, but fully capable of speaking just like some other monsters you've seen in Season 1. Now, at first, Novellin tries to scare Geralt off with his antics by being loud and brash and making a bunch of noise and growling and all this kind of shit, but Geralt's a fucking Witcher, and he don't give a damn. So after he embarrasses himself, he invites Geralt in, they have dinner and talk, and they kind of get to know each other, where Novellin tells Geralt about himself, his father and grandfather, etc., and the last 12 years where he spent being cursed. He reveals how it was through his own misdeeds that he came to be cursed, where he was actually kind of coerced into raping a woman by his fellow gang members at the time. But this woman happened to be a priestess and actually spit on him and cursed him, literally. And anyway, he goes on to kind of tell Geralt how he's been living for the past 12 years and how he actually kind of enjoys the state he's in. But of course, Geralt being the sleuth that he is and detective, he starts to figure out some other things and make some assumptions as well. Now, Novellin explains to Geralt that since his fate seemed to be straight out of fairy tales, that perhaps other fairy tales contain a grain of truth, where it gets its name, of course. And in particular, tales of beautiful young women turning beasts back into men, of course, going off the old Beauty and the Beast fairy tale. So essentially, he tells Geralt that he makes these deals with the local farmers where these women come to live with him one at a time for a year. And when they leave, that he gives them all this gold and all this kind of stuff. And he realizes that after the first one, that's not going to break the curse. Now, these women were treated normally. They were treated fairly. They were treated like queens, and they were given money. They were not coerced into, sex or anything like that or whatever. But he tells Geralt all this kind of stuff. But Geralt really seems to be interested in the latest woman who lives with him called Verena. And Geralt keeps asking him, are they alone while they're talking? But Nivellen keeps kind of dodging the question. Anyway, at the end of their dinner, Nivellen escorts Geralt out, unwilling to discuss the latest girl, Verena, who Geralt keeps asking about. He does mention the dreams he's been having lately, which suggest that his condition might be worsening and that he might someday truly become the monster he currently appears to be. He asks Geralt to do his duty if things go really wrong, and the Witcher agrees and leaves. So anyway, Geralt leaves with his belly full. He goes and stays in a nearby forest, not really going too far, and he comes back the next day and sees Verena out in the front yard, who doesn't really say much. But Geralt also has his silver sword in his hand because he realizes that Verena is what's called a Bruxa, or a type of vampire. And she is essentially using Nivellen for her way of life, although she really does love him. So it's kind of a love story with the Beauty and the Beast theme type of thing. But anyway, Geralt confronts her, and he ends up getting in a fight with her when she realizes he knows what she is, and she tries to kill Geralt, and of course Geralt has to defend himself. He's not doing too good. She's really quick and all this stuff in combat. But then Nivellen walks out the door looking for her and distracts her long enough for Geralt to do some damage, but then she actually kind of pins Geralt back down under some logs, I believe it was. Anyway, Nivellen actually calls for her again a second time and actually distracts her from killing Geralt, and as Verena turns to him, he actually impales her. She actually pulls herself closer to Nivellen and is going to actually take him with her because she knows at this point she's already dead. But she actually is professing her love for him. And with her dying and professing her love for him, that's what actually breaks the curse. So now Nivellen takes his normal form as a man again, completely confused about what the hell just happened, and walks away with Geralt as he tries to explain what just happened to the best of his knowledge. And be sure to click right over here for our latest podcast. Here's the playlist for the SmokeScreen podcast where James and I discuss history and mystery and pop culture and all sorts of things. Or you can click right over here for that Witcher video I mentioned on the signs explained and what we've seen in Season 1 and also will likely see in Season 2 as far as these basic magic signs that Witchers can use during combat. Anyway, guys, as usual, thank you for all the support, especially you guys on Patreon, and a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.